Hello, everybody. I just wanted to kind of talk about the new patch. I know it's been a little bit since I've covered E7, but as with all things, when content comes out, when things come or become announced, it's cool. I check in regularly, and of course, I still play E7 every day. Can't miss out on my dailies and my free-to-play arc. By the way, real free-to-play arc. Anyways, enough stalling. Let's talk about the 3.21 patch that was just announced today. As you could see, the highlight of the patch is going to be Cannaaaa, which makes sense. He's a fire thief. He looks really interesting, honestly. He's got a lot of damage built into his kit. And based off of the preview that we had originally seen, a lot of people kind of slated him to be somewhat of a, I guess like another solo DPS that is supposed to answer characters like Abyssal Euphine, who a lot of people, in my opinion, are kind of annoyed about, myself included. I think getting Elbrist or fighting Holy Sack every single game is really annoying. But that's, obviously without its, pros and cons. Some people think that Abyssal Euphine is a necessary evil. Regardless, I'm not going to go down that path. But if you're curious about what the character does, he essentially has a huge S3 nuke that doesn't end up just being like a one-time thing. It's not like you do your S3 nuke and then you pray to God, or you pray that you can S3 later. You can actually, once you activate some conditions, use his S1 that can then activate his S3 again. Long story short, he's a bit of a nuker that has some survivability. I have a whole Cannaaaa video if you're curious about that, that you can go ahead and look at. And of course, the patch or like the preview and all that stuff, I'll link in the comment section below or in the description for your viewing pleasure. But I guess his artifact or his signature artifact kind of makes sense for him, obviously because it increases his attack, but also gives him a barrier. This is just made for him. That's how his artifact and most artifacts are made. And I actually think this is one of the few artifacts that makes sense for Cannaaaa enjoyers to actually pick up, primarily because, again, it's like a thief's chatty, which, again, kind of makes sense, but kind of doesn't make sense because there's a few thieves that can obviously use this. Characters like maybe Violet or something come to mind if you want the barrier, but ultimately a lot of the thieves in general kind of rely on evasion and countering anyways, so actually using that on a character like Violet or another, I guess, evasion character doesn't make too much sense. But enough stalling again with the whole character. The thing that I think is actually worth talking about, aside from the new story and their little video that they posted, which I do think was it was pretty well made, I would say. It's got like a decent amount of story or whatever, even though I myself am not that big of a story enjoyer, is actually this new profile thing that they've announced, which is a profile card frame preview. Try saying that 10 times fast. Now, the interesting thing about this frame and the fact that they're adding this frame at all is that, number one, EpicSeven, if you didn't know, is a game that has recently added the match history thing, or this matchhistory.gg, and it lets you look up players' builds, the characters, or like the comps that they play. And while I think this is a very nice addition to the game where it shows that, oh, well, now you've got like a frame, I don't really like the fact that with the meta, or like the meta of people remembering people's profile cards or their picks or their pre-bends and stuff like this, it doesn't really help that essentially Smilegate has not really addressed the fact that everyone has ignored the profile cards, especially if you're someone that wants to try hard, because they don't want to get target banned, they don't want to get sniped, they don't want people to be able to, I guess, like fourth wall break or like kind of play out of the meta and kind of pre-ban you beforehand before even knowing who you're actually fighting against, even though it's supposed to be an unknown player, as per like the matchmaking queue. In other words, what I'm trying to get at here, guys, is that I think it's unfortunate that this change that they've added, which is a frame that kind of stays consistent with you if you've played games like Apex Legends or stuff like that. It's a frame that stays with you into the next season, and then it's basically your highest placement, or I think it's where you end if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's based on your rank from the previous regular season. And so if you, last season you were Masters, the season or like the season after, the frame that you'll have is the Masters frame. But if you don't play RTA for the season after that, the frame that you'll see in the season after that is just nothing. So again, it's kind of nice. It incentivizes you to keep the border, or it incentivizes you to play the game in order to keep the border. But ultimately, well, I think adding visual aspects or visual rewards in general to RTA, I think are really nice. I do think that, number one, they should add rewards that aren't cosmetic. I think it's time, again, to reward players that play RTA. And ultimately, I know it's a bit of a controversial take, but ultimately, if you aren't someone that wants to play RTA, that's totally fine. I totally respect your opinion. But for the people that do play RTA, or since they're pushing so much of RTA into the limelight with the E7 World Championship, the different tournaments that they have, and especially with draft mode, there should be an ongoing reward for people that decide to play PvP. And if you choose to not play it, then by all means, that's totally fine. But the rest of us should not be punished, essentially, just because you don't want to play RTA. I don't think there's any other game in the world that has a reoccurring ladder like this where you don't get any rewards for continuously playing. Even with other games like League of Legends or Valorant or any other game, you get like loot boxes for playing enough time, or for playing for enough time, which again is, obviously balanced by the fact that you need to play a lot for it to make, a difference. But ultimately, with the profile frame, I think it's cool, but wrapping or tying things back, I don't think a lot of people are even going to make use of this or are going to appreciate this, considering a lot of people have to hide their frames in general, or hide their profile cards in general, and they have to make them some very generic illustration that they've kind of talked about initially because they don't want to get target banned. As I get that for me, it's a little bit different because I'm a content creator and people will sometimes actively try to remember what my profile card is. Even for people that are just, in the champion or emperor range, I'm sure you felt this before where you will fight someone that you've just seen and you'll know like, oh, well, that guy, like, he plays very weird, or he plays different with this Aiden, or he has a really fast, knock wall or something. Therefore, I'm going to pre-ban it. I understand the idea behind that, but I don't know if I'd necessarily call it the integrity, but for the sake of people not wanting to get target banned, because that's the whole point of keeping the the anonymity, if that's how you say it, and that's the whole point of having the unknown user or like the blind picking of RTA. If that's the case, there's no reason for them to be adding these profile card additions without first adjusting or addressing the fact that people can kind of figure out where your profile card is from or who you are based off your profile card. So Smilegate, this is something that I think a lot of people have, suggested or recommended, which is the making the profile card show at the end of draft phase or later on in the, in the RTA queue match, so that you can still appreciate and have your profile card, but you aren't, you aren't seeing the profile card immediately and then everyone knows, oh, that's instantly Elfmage, or, oh, that's instantly like Genizad, someone that you can already remember, or a card that you already would know, or a player that you would already know, and therefore you ban them, especially if they play some specific playstyle, whatever it is. In any case, I know that was a bit of a rant. I apologize. I just think that it's really kind of like a double-edged sword. I really like the fact that they're adding this profile change and the fact that they're adding some additional rewards to RTA. Rewards, but it's really just like a tracking badge, essentially. But I think it's unfortunate because no one will really be able to, like, use this without, being afraid of this giving, any indicator for what, someone was in the past. Or I am fearful that people will use this as something that they're afraid people will be able to identify them as, is what I meant to say. I apologize. There's not like a very succinct way to describe this. But just speaking from experience, I think it's really annoying to be target banned. Even though Smilegate themselves have kind of leaned us into this direction of playing blind pick, I understand that it's annoying to fight against Cleave. I understand that sometimes it's annoying to fight against like certain playstyles. But if that was the case and they wanted everyone to be target banned and they wanted target banning a part of the, the RTA playstyle, then they should just let people's names, or they should have never hidden anyone's names to begin with. That's the alternative. And so therefore, very cool change. And beyond everything else, here's the drop rates, or like the dates for when the drop rates and stuff are going to be announced. Jannua's banner is coming on the 21st of March, which is like, I believe, the Wednesday night of that patch. Dilibit is also coming out, but honestly, Humegalol. And then there is this kind of adjustment. It says that improvements will be made so that side stories of new heroes start automatically, which is kind of nice, honestly, because for me, I haven't done a side story in a long time. Not because I don't want to do the side stories, but because sometimes I just forget. But in any case, guys, long story short, this is kind of a nothing burger of a patch. It's just announcing like the new stuff that we've already seen from last week about Cannaaaa. And this small little change with the profile cards, I think, is nice. But again, I implore you, Smilegate, number one, my prayer is that, again, for people that end up playing PvP, it's totally fine. It shouldn't be mandatory for you to play PvP by any means. But that doesn't mean that, players that are deciding to play PvP should not be rewarded. And then secondly, for the profile cards and such, I think it's kind of ridiculous at this point that they can add things to the profile cards or like to the frames or the matchmaking, but they aren't even able to do something like move when the profile cards get shown, because again, it's kind of annoying to be target banned, or it's annoying that there's an indicator or there's some sort of advantage to remembering what people's cards look like. In any case, I hope that through these changes, not only will people be able to use their old profile cards. I personally have a Makimo profile card that I've been waiting to use, but I can't literally use it because a lot of people will see it and then immediately ban stuff like Ran and Zeo, which is very frustrating. But anyways, aside from that, in totality, Janu is coming out. I'm excited to see how he is. The profile card thing is cool. Side story is being added. All great things or great features. If I had to rate the patch, honestly, outside of the character, it's, again, the off week, so the patch is kind of whatever. But them adding this profile card change or announcing it is cool enough for me. So I honestly think it's about a 6.5, maybe a 7 patch in general. For something that was otherwise supposed to be an off week, or we're not supposed to be getting anything right now, especially because, you know, it's the off week, but also because we're getting a Meruem mail on Friday, which I'm sure we'll have plenty of news. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, comment, turn the notification bell, and subscribe. I know it's been a little bit. Again, I apologize for those of you that have been waiting for E7 content, but I appreciate everyone that's been sticking through and watching any of the content that I post on my YouTube or that I stream, etc. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Adios.